morning. It is 10:15 in the Santa Monica area, 1:15 here in Villanova, Pennsylvania. It is not 79 degrees here, but we are still happy to be able to say, welcome to the church in Ocean Park. Good to see you.
Good morning.
I am Dr. Kim Harris. This is Reggie Harris. And we're going to get going this morning with one of our favorites. This song started off as a spiritual. Woke up this morning with my mind stayed on Jesus. Then during the modern civil rights movement, it became woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. All right.
Woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. Woke up this morning with my mind stayed on freedom. I woke up this morning with my mind, oh, it was a stayed on freedom. Hallelujah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Well, I'm singing and praying with my mind. Oh, I got it. Stayed on freedom. Singing and praying with my mind. Oh, stayed on freedom. I'm singing and praying with my mind. Yeah. Stayed on freedom. Hallelujah. 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 Well, you know we're walking and talking with my mind.
Yes, we are now.
Stayed on freedom. Walking and talking with my mind. Yeah. Stayed on freedom. I'm walking and talking with my mind. My mind. Stayed on freedom. Hallelujah. 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 Well, you gotta walk. You gotta walk, you gotta walk with your mind on freedom. Walk,
Yeah.
you gotta walk, you gotta walk with your mind on freedom. Oh, walk, you gotta walk, and then you'll talk, you gotta talk, you gotta talk with your mind on freedom. Talk, you gotta talk, oh, you gotta talk with your mind on freedom. Oh, you gotta talk,
Yeah.
talk. Oh, well, there ain't no harm to keep your mind, oh, keep it up, stayed on freedom. Ain't no harm to keep your mind, oh, keep it up, stayed on freedom. Oh, ain't no harm to keep your mind, oh, keep it up, stayed on freedom. Hallelujah, 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 hallelujah.
Welcome to the church in Ocean Park.
Hallelujah.
Now we'll have our welcome from Gina Fraser.
Hold on. Hold on, just a sec. Can you see us?
You both.
Hello.
Okay.
Hey,
Okay.
where
All
were
right.
you? Hi, Charles.
Okay. Hi, my name is Gina, and this is my daughter, Waverly. And we are a member of the Church in Ocean Park. And we are here to welcome you to this unique interfaith community that is dedicated to social justice. You may be wondering if you are welcomed here. We are interfaith, so you are welcome if you're Jewish, if you're Muslim, if you're Hindu, Buddhist, Christian, atheist, or some combination or something else altogether.
Okay. We extended a special invitation to those who are single, married, divorced, gay, transgender, filthy rich, or living paycheck to paycheck. We extend a special invitation to those who are crying newborns, aged like fine wine, just woke up, or just got out of jail. We don't care if you're more religious than the Pope or haven't been to church since 1950. You're welcomed if you enjoy clapping your hands, snapping your fingers, or just paddling your foot with rhythm or no rhythm. You're welcome if you love to testify, recognize, or prophesize how good God is to you. We invite those who are in recovery or still addicted. We invite you if you're having problems or down in the dumps. We welcome those who enjoy Daytona racing or, like me, just enjoy RuPaul's Drag Race. We offer a simple invitation to those who work too hard, don't work, sing, or lip sync at a restaurant with all your close friends. We invite those who are inked, pierced, or both. We invite Rams fans, Bengals fans, or the best fans. Steeler Nation, baby. Steeler Nation. We offer a special invitation to those who use prayer right now or had religion shoved down their throats as a kid. We invite tourists, seekers, and doubters, and you. Welcome to the church in Ocean Park. Steeler Nation.
Go Rams.
All right, we begin with a chant. Did you want to do that, Gina?
Yes. So another thing that the church does, what we do is we center ourselves with a Thich Nhat Hanh chant. And we say this 3 times. What we say is, I have arrived, I am home, in the here and in the now. And we'll repeat it 3 times. I have arrived, I am home, in the here and in the now. I have arrived, I am home, in the here and in the now. I have arrived, I am home, in the here and in the now.
Thank you so much, Gina and Waverly. I loved your welcome. You are definitely welcome here if you are any of those things that they described, or more, or less. I'm Reverend Janet Gallery McKithen, and I'm the minister at the church in Ocean Park. And I also welcome you here. We are diverse, as they said. We're all different types of folks. So you might hear something that you disagree with. That often is the case because each Sunday, the speaker is from a different tradition, or they're presenting a different topic. We have somebody, sometimes we have a rabbi, sometimes we have a pastor, sometimes we have neither of the above. So if you may hear something that you disagree with, and that's by intention, so we can actually have a discussion at some point, not during the morning, but it opens our perspectives, and that's what we're trying to do so that we can help together create a better world for all people. At this time, I invite us to pause for a moment to acknowledge that the land that we're sitting on is stolen land. The church in Ocean Park in Santa Monica sits on the land that was stolen violently from the Quiche, the Chumash, and the Tongva peoples. Their land was violently ripped away and their families torn apart and dispersed, and many people were annihilated. Though still many live among us. And for that, we're grateful. We also live in a country that was built on the backs and through the enslavement of Black people who are in Africa. So we pause for a moment and recognize where we sit so that we know where we are acting from. This morning, we're honoring Black history. Black history is, of course, always important, but not only in February, but we take this month of February to honor it in a particular way. It gives us another opportunity to educate ourselves and become more active, especially during this time when school districts and states are enacting legislation that make it illegal not only to teach real history, but to even talk about what's going on now. In some places, teachers are prohibited from discussing anything that would make their students uncomfortable. Well, they actually are prohibited from making white students uncomfortable because there isn't much concern about making Black students uncomfortable, as we know. This morning, we're grateful that our friend Reggie Harris is with us. Reggie is already a part of the church in Ocean Park, and we've been eagerly anticipating him coming back. And to make this day even more special to celebrate, Dr. Kim Harris is in the same location. So as we heard, they're able to do their beautiful harmonies together. And for that, we're extremely grateful. I want to give you just a small reminder of who Reggie Harris is. Reggie Harris has earned distinction as one of the foremost interpreters and song leaders of the music of the Underground Railroad and the modern civil rights movement. With a passion for peace and justice, Reggie travels worldwide using his gifts to share hope and to raise awareness of human rights in the spirit of Dr. Martin Luther King's beloved community. Known for over 40 years as one half of the eminently prominent duo, Kim and Reggie Harris, Reggie continues to crisscross across the country, carrying the message of joy, unity, tolerance, and peace throughout the medium of live music. Reggie is also the co-president of the board of the Living Legacy Project, which offers experiential learning opportunities to deepen understanding of the civil rights movement. So we're glad you're back, Reggie, and we're glad all of you are here. Welcome to the church in Ocean Park. However you come this morning, if you come with sadness, if you come with gladness, if you come with confusion, you're welcome, all of you. Welcome to the church in Ocean Park.
All right. So glad to be here with Reggie, and we're gonna get started. You want to show us a little bit about the Living Legacy Project? You got a video for it?
That I can do.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I never been to heaven, but I think I'm right. Been down into the South. Folks up there both black and white. Been down into the South. Hallelujah, freedom. Hallelujah, freedom. Hallelujah, freedom. Been down into the South. Well, I never been to heaven, but I think I'm right. Been down into the South. I don't want to go with them a civil right. Been down into the South. We sing Hallelujah, freedom. Hallelujah, freedom. Hallelujah, freedom. Been down into the South. I've been walking around to spread the news. Been down into the South. And now I got holes in all my shoes. Been down into the and South. We sing Hallelujah, freedom. Hallelujah, freedom. Hallelujah, freedom. Been down into the South. Well, if you don't think I've been through hell, been down into the South. Just follow me down to Parchment Jail. Been down into the and South. We sing Hallelujah, freedom. Hallelujah, freedom. Hallelujah, freedom. Hallelujah, freedom. Been down into the South. The only thing that we did wrong, been down into the South, was stay in the wilderness a day too long. Been down into the and South. And we sing Hallelujah, freedom. Hallelujah, freedom. We sing Hallelujah, freedom. Oh, hallelujah, freedom. Been down into the South. Yeah, but the only thing that we did right, been down into the South, was on that day we took up the fight. Been down into the South. We sing Hallelujah, freedom. Hallelujah, freedom. We sing Hallelujah, freedom. Oh, hallelujah, freedom. Been down into the South. Well, I never been to heaven, but I think I'm right.
Been down into the South.
I don't want to go with number voting right.
Been down into the
and
South.
we sing
Hallelujah, freedom. Hallelujah,
we sing
hallelujah, freedom.
hallelujah, freedom.
Been down into the
We
South.
sing
Hallelujah, freedom. Hallelujah,
we sing
hallelujah, freedom.
hallelujah, freedom. Been down.
into the
Oh, we
South.
sing
Hallelujah, freedom. Hallelujah, freedom. Hallelujah, freedom.
been down into the South.
Woo. I know. Wow.
That just gives me pause because unfortunately with COVID being such a challenge over the last couple of years, those scenes that you saw in the video, scenes from a pilgrimage that we took with Nazareth College in Rochester, and repeated so many times with other groups, have not been possible. And actually we were supposed to be
I know LMU was going to have a
Right.
Living Legacy pilgrimage.
Yeah.
And we're trying to postpone it and figure out when we can get it together. But tell us now, how did this whole thing get started? Living Legacy.
It
pilgrimage.
actually started with a Unitarian minister named Gordon Gibson and his wife. Gordon was one of those ministers that responded to Dr. King's call after Bloody Sunday. And so he and a number of other ministers went to Selma, Alabama after the bridge, after those 600 people were beaten by state troopers, responding to the call of justice. And then he was called to a church in Mississippi. He and his wife went there from Boston, Massachusetts.
Lord have mercy.
And made contact. You know, they were in a Unitarian church in the South, which was an extraordinary thing to begin with. But they also just started to meet and become friends with people in those communities. He worked for the Equal Justice Initiative and not the Equal Justice Initiative, the Equal Opportunities Commission.
Okay.
Also worked with Dr. King, went to jail. And years later, he was talking about those experiences with his church in Indiana. And they all said, you know, you've been talking about this. Why don't you take us down to meet those people who were so much a part of your transformation in life? They took one busload of folks.
Was it a bus or a van? Or
It was actually the first trip with 2 vans.
Okay. Whoa.
And they
Okay.
went down and they took people into the community, largely to meet the folks, but to hear their stories, to have people like Joanne Bland and others tell their own story about being part of the civil rights movement. Some of the folks at Meade Lombard heard about it and said they wanted their seminarians to go, so they took another trip, this time a busload. And 3 of the folks on that trip, Janice Marie Johnson and Hope Johnson and Annette Marquis, who are still part of the Living Legacy Project. Hope Johnson died actually last year. They said, you know, this needs to happen again.
And again.
And again.
Yeah.
So it was another trip took place. In 2010, they made the call to me to come and do music. And I thought it was just a one-off. I'm just going to do this trip and that'll be it.
You can't tell these stories without the music.
No, you really can't. So I have been part of the Living Legacy Project since 2010. We are now in the process of pivoting to widen our educational outreach, largely because of what Pastor Janet mentioned. You know, we have now school districts. I just had a school cancel a program I was doing on Martin Luther King Jr. In Pennsylvania.
Oh, Lord.
Because they said the material that I'm covering is too sensitive for their young students. So
I was saying to Reggie when we were watching that, you know, because we did, you know, for years and years and years, programs about Harriet Tubman and the Underground Railroad. And every now and again, you know, back then, you know, 10, 15 years ago, some parents would say, oh, it's too sensitive.
Yeah.
You know, we can't talk about enslavement.
And to think about the fact that talking about Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. and his having a dream is now too sensitive for young people to hear, we are definitely in time of challenge.
Oh, Yes, indeed. So what are these pilgrimages like? Because I'm hoping that when COVID calms down, et cetera, et cetera. It'd be great if we could get a group, from Church in Ocean Park to
It'd be
go
amazing.
on a pilgrimage. Yeah.
The pilgrimage is designed to open our minds and our hearts. It's a pilgrimage. We go to 4 or 5 places every day. Mm-hmm. Some of them are museums. Some of them are churches. Some of them are community centers. The idea is to go with an attitude of openness to see the exhibits, to see the sites of the civil rights movement, with an idea that civil rights, we're battling this all over the nation. So we invite people from different communities to come, bringing their own stories about what's happening for them in their own places. Mm-hmm. But to go to those places like the Edmund Pettus Bridge, and to go to those places like the Equal Justice Initiative's Museum for Peace and Justice, to the Lynching Memorial.
Yeah, I saw the Lorraine Motel.
The Lorraine Motel. We go to the Civil Rights Museum in Jackson, Mississippi. And in Memphis, Tennessee.
And of course in Birmingham.
And of course we go to Birmingham, and we go to the 16th Street Baptist Church. We go to Kelly Ingram Park, where you saw some of the scenes where children were attacked. This is real history. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, because it has not been taught over the course of years, as we all know, so many Americans still do not understand how it is that we've reached this place where we are. But it's not just seeing the sites and seeing those places. It's hearing the stories of what people are doing in those communities today, right now, and linking that to where we're working in our own communities.
Now, at this time, there still are some civil rights veterans.
There are.
Who are still with us on
We're
this
losing
side.
them quickly.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
But, people like Hollis Watkins, and I mentioned Joanne Bland. Joanne Bland was on the bridge on Bloody Sunday. She was 9 years old, watched her sister get beaten unconscious, tells a story about going back into their community in Selma.
Wait, but now who tried to help her out that day?
Actually, Hosea Williams picked up a friend of hers. Mm-hmm. And the story goes that they were all running back across the bridge as the police were beating them and tear gassing them. And a young woman whose name I can't remember right now, but it was a friend of Joanne Bland's. And she said, she was running and somebody picked her up. Hosea Williams. She turned around and saw that Hosea Williams, who was in the front of the line at first, and he was carrying her. And after a couple of steps, she turned around and she said, "Put me down. You're not running fast enough."
Oh, Lord.
But they went back into the community, and as the stories go, the police followed them back into their churches, rode a horse up into the church so he could beat people. They beat them all night long. The stories didn't make the history books. These are the stories that people who are in power now don't want us to hear, as we see the very same things coming, again and again in our communities. So.
And you call it a pilgrimage. I mean, it's not a tour or anything like that. It is a pilgrimage. What would you say makes it a pilgrimage?
Well, one of the things that makes it a pilgrimage is the music. The music that we sang. We know that music was the fuel that opened people's hearts, both those who were working for freedom and justice and those who were opposing it. But also we have periods of reflection. We have times when we really allow ourselves to just reflect on what it is we're seeing and how that's resonating with us. We talk to people on the bus. We pair up and we have group discussions. And we do readings, and we take a real opportunity to center ourselves in those places which still have a lot of power. I mean, it's an amazing thing. You saw in the video one dilapidated place. It was the store where Emmett Till met Carolyn Bryant, and an event that, of course, ended his life. But just standing outside of that store, or going to the Intrepid Museum that's about 20 minutes away, where his body was taken, where he was buried, actually thrown in the river. Visiting those sites still has an amazing impact on our being able to open ourselves to the information of making change.
So it is really quite incredible to think about this pilgrimage and the people that are helping to keep it alive. And I also see that you all do webinars through the year. I mean, we had one on, of course, protest music. So
yeah, we found ourselves unable to put people on the bus.
Right.
And so we started doing webinar series on voting rights, on human rights, on the music of the movement. We have speakers. We'll actually be having a concert on March the 9th, a concert with Reverend Robert Jones, Alistair Mook, who's a white social service worker, musician in Boston, and Chris Matthews is going to join us.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Great songwriter from North Carolina. And we're going to be celebrating and commemorating Selma all these years later, the history of Bloody Sunday, and have them talk about their music and what they're doing in the world at this point to further the cause of civil rights.
Okay. So, we'll put in the chat, we'll put the website.
LivingLegacyPilgrimage.org. We'll put that in the chat.
Okay, we will put that in the chat. So thanks a lot. Now, we'll be going into community sharing, so people will be able to ask some questions. It was so powerful. Besides the fact that Reg and I were music leaders on the pilgrimage together, we were also there for the 50th anniversary celebration and commemoration. We were in Birmingham.
We were, but
because there wasn't enough room in Selma for all the people. And now we didn't get to cross the Edmund Pettus Bridge the same day that President Obama did.
What we went across was 70,000 folks.
Yeah, I think actually Reverend Janet posted that picture of us with Amy Goodman.
Oh, yeah.
Yes. So glad to get a chance to be here this morning. And I know that Louise is going to actually sing one of our absolute favorite songs, and then we're going to look forward to community sharing with everybody. So thanks for having us today at Church in Ocean Park.
Wade in the water, children, wade in the water. God's gonna trouble the water. I said, God's gonna trouble the water. I said, God's gonna trouble the water. God's gonna trouble the water.
I think now it's time for community sharing. Community, you get to speak and ask a question or just make a comment, whatever you like. So I see a hand up. Craig Ali, go ahead. More hands are coming up. Great.
And thank you, Louise. It's interesting, it started off with the idea that critical race theory is the main factor in seeing to it that this history is not visited. And I'm just wondering, is there indeed something that is being done, to catalog and to package it such that a 5-year-old can see, between a 5 and a 10-year-old can see just how significant, this is, in spite of the efforts that are being displayed to hide this. I'm curious as to, and when I say that, I think of my great nephew and my great niece who have children of their own, and trying to impart upon them the struggle consistent with the other talk or the talk that we have. So I'm wondering, as significant as what it is you've experienced, is there something that we can point to that can, answer some of these basic questions?
Mm-hmm. There are certainly, at this time, there are more books, more videos, more online resources that are available to tell the story. There are teachers who are, and groups who are working very creatively to battle this onslaught of misinformation. And so things are rising up all the time, but the materials are there. Unlike when Kim and I first started doing, our program on the Underground Railroad and the programs on civil rights when there was very little out there. For example, and also last 2 weeks ago when the book Mouse was banned, immediately bookstores and individuals began to buy up the materials and then disseminate them in a variety of different ways to make sure that they were getting into the hands of people. The book became a bestseller.
Right. Now, it's so interesting because, a lot of what we were doing, if you look in the curriculum, pretty much across the nation, every state in their curriculum at some place has the teaching of, American history. Now, we did a lot for 4th, 5th, and 6th graders, teaching about Harriet Tubman and the Underground Railroad and Frederick Douglass, teaching about the modern civil rights movement. So it's right there in the curriculum. And we were actually, even back then, very careful to tie what we were doing to the curriculum. Places like the Kennedy Center, we would do workshops for teachers through the Kennedy Center to teach them how to use the materials so they could teach it in their classrooms. So those things are out there. You can go take the Kennedy Center. If you go on the website of the Education Department, you'll find all kinds of materials that will help young people to learn about the truths in American history. And it's not that we would teach them critical race theory, because as you know, that's really a law school kind of concept. But we teach them, the basics about the things that happen. And it might be that then a little bit later, they might say, well, is it something about what happened during the civil rights movement that then caused there to be redlining for housing and caused there to be people working against voting rights? And that's when you start getting into, what we would really call critical race theory. So, but thanks, Craig. And you can always contact us and we'll get some info to you.
Okay, Audrey.
Thanks, Louise. Good morning, everyone. 2 quick points. One is, the first is a question. It was such a wonderful video, and I'm wondering, is that available on the website?
It actually is, yes.
Okay, great. And the second thing I want to say is that my friend Abby Arnold, who's with the Unitarian Universalist Community Church of Santa Monica, and who's also had a relationship with this church, she went on the Living Legacy Project, I don't know, 5 years ago, 6 years ago, and maybe 4 years ago. Anyway, she said it was so wonderful. She invited a number of us to her house to sort of preach about it. And I, ever since, have wanted to go. So I'm hoping there will be the opportunity soon. So thank you very much.
You are so welcome.
Thanks, Audrey. Oh, okay, Claudia.
Thank you, Louise. And thank you for this wonderful service this morning. I love the idea of a pilgrimage. And I have a comment and then I have a question. I'm from Detroit, and right now there is a lot of focus on a bridge in Detroit. And for me, every time I see it, it's a pilgrimage. It's the Ambassador Bridge that goes between Canada, Windsor, and Detroit. I grew up on an island right under the Ambassador Bridge in the Detroit River called Grosse Ile. And every time the bridge comes on, and I see Detroit River, I think of my childhood. But then what I see is Wayne County, Detroit, and really what the bridge is going into on the Detroit side is Motown. And then going up north a little bit is where that recent school shooting happened. And then it's also where a great deal of the voter suppression is happening. So my comment is, right now, everything is being played out looking at that bridge, the Ambassador Bridge. That's happening in our country right now. And I just spoke to a cousin of mine. All the cross currents are going on in Michigan, and they don't have a community like we have with Church in Ocean Park to work it out. but so I'm really glad for this kind of opportunity just for my psyche. But beyond that, I would just like a comment on how the work that you two do intersects with Motown, because it's just an incredible expression of song, and I'd love to hear a little bit about that.
Well, certainly Motown was one of the landmarks in American history for making that connection between black music and the white community. I will say you probably want to tune in on March the 9th to the concert, because Reverend Robert Jones, who will be part of that concert, is from Detroit, born and raised. He's actually a Baptist minister in Detroit, in addition to being a blues singer. He will be talking some about his growing up in the area and what really made a difference for him in making the connection between music and civil rights.
Mm-hmm. Fantastic. All right, thanks, Claudia.
All right, this is going great. Linda Bond.
Thanks. This is, I'm trying to think and click simultaneously. Not that easy, ever. But anyway, this is so rich. My head is spinning in 5 different ways, but I'm a history teacher. And so, I think a lot about the choices that are made whenever we teach the history, right? And it's always selective. I mean, you can't actually teach the history of everything that ever happened. I mean, you can't, right? And that's one of the things I tell students. You always have to make choices about what you consider to be important in the history, right? And the folks in power make those choices, and then those of us who try and present a counter narrative, make our own choices. And I don't want to second guess anybody's choices, but there's a question that I have whenever the history of this of the music, of Black music in particular, is being presented. And it's the question of the role of Paul Robeson. And I'd be interested in your comments really on the significance of his exclusion from the narrative.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that you mentioned him, especially because in one program that we did for years and years called Dream Alive, a celebration of Black history, we always showed a whole section on Paul Robeson. I really appreciate, especially with, particular interest in the spirituals, I really appreciate the fact that he was presenting that music, the historic music, the songs of faith and songs of freedom that he was one of the early people that did this. He would do his concerts of so-called classical music, and then at the end of the concert would sing spirituals. Now, these days, you'd be hard pressed to find, African-American opera singers and classical singers that don't do that at the end of their program. But a lot of that came from the choices that he made. And those were not necessarily popular choices when he started off. It always seems like, oh, yes, everybody has always done this. But, there were questions about that when he did it. But his he was a very brave person.
We also mentioned the fact that he was one of the first African Americans to play pro football. And the breadth of his, he was a lawyer. He spoke many languages, So I think from our standpoint, we held him up as a scholar and as one who contributed to so many different things in terms of, one of those folks on whose shoulders we stand. And I think that's often a way to sort of get around some of the exclusion. We know that people like Pete Seeger, we were working at one point with a music publisher, and when we mentioned the perfect song that they needed to use, one of the publishers said, "Oh, that song was done by that communist Pete Seeger. We're never going to do anything by him." So we know that politically we run into these roadblocks, but introducing the other aspects of people's lives, I think is one way to sort of get around and to show, how they're important in the flow of history.
And also thinking about why Paul Robeson for a time would choose to leave the country, why choose to leave the United States, why he would choose to be connected with workers' movements in Russia. So, so there are, quite an incredible person.
Yeah, and I love your point about, having to make choices.
Absolutely. And the other thing is, I remember when we were first recording one of our first CDs, actually it started off on vinyl, Music in the Underground Railroad, and we really wanted to do the song Deep River. And we sang it, we recorded it, and then we said, you know what? We've got Paul Robeson in our ears, and we erased what we had. We said we cannot do that. So we did this whole thing of putting Deep River together with Swing Low, Sweet Chariot, because we said when we think of his voice, the richness of his voice and his skill, say we ain't doing that. We're not having people compare us to him. So I mean, he's a real favorite of ours.
And a role model for sure.
And a role model. So yes, indeed.
All right. Maybe we'll go on to Reverend Joseph. We'll come back to you, Bob. Go ahead, Reverend Joseph.
Okay, I just have a suggestion, an observation and a suggestion. Now, my observation is that most of the educators, teachers, professors involved in Black history and Black education has been women. I think most of them have been women. I'm very much encouraged to see the amount of women going into tutoring and getting degrees in Black history and everything involved in the movement. But I don't see many men as tutors and educators in that regard. Is that observation, am I right in that observation? And if so, do you think that we should try to encourage more men to be involved in this same type of ministry? And the other thing is that I thought maybe that we could, if we had something like Sesame Street, if we had a program ongoing, like Sesame Street, that related to Black history and the Black programs, maybe that would help.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. It's very true, I think, in general, that the world of education, for a variety of reasons, is largely women. A lot of it is pay, and a lot of it is prejudice, and a lot of it is access. Mm-hmm. But
sexism.
Sexism.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Over the course, and men tend to come into the arena and then kind of go through and go to administration.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
However, over the last 10 years, there's been a great influx, particularly among educators who do music and the arts, where more and more men are getting involved. And I'll look up there's a group called the Family Music Forward.
So Family Music Forward?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I'll look up the link and we'll put that in. There's a very, very, a growing list of musicians and educators, not only men, but also men of color who have entered the fray. Part of it is that they didn't get access before. Mm-hmm. And they were not being seen and recognized, and folks just weren't booking them. They weren't giving them work. They have begun through the advocacy of some other organizations and also other musicians to find the window to get in. And last year there was a protest against the Recording Academy there in California.
That's right, the Grammys for children's for the children's recordings. Yeah.
Okay.
There was a protest because all of the for the umpteenth time, all the nominees were white, and 3 of the white nominees decided.
One of them was our friend Alistair Mook, who was nominated. Yeah.
They decided to reject their nominations, making the point that there were these black colleagues who had not been seen, and this year. A number of those black colleagues not only were recognized but were put up for nomination. The actual process has been delayed, but one of them may very well win a Grammy, and others have surfaced. So there's some hope on the horizon. I'm not saying we're there.
But it's a slow process. But I love the idea of a show for young people that would continue to focus on Black history, and and hey, we're in LA. We ought to be able to pull something off, right?
Okay.
So thanks, Reverend Joseph.
The song by the amazing singer-songwriter activist Matt Jones. There are things that we know that we don't know we know. Come to the tree of life. There are things that we know that we don't know we know. Come to the tree of life. Come to the tree of life. Come to the tree of life. There are things that we know that we don't know we know. Come to the tree of life.
Now, Matt Jones. Matt Jones was one of the SNCC Freedom Singers. And he and his brother Marshall, they were part of SNCC Freedom Singers. They traveled all over, presenting concerts, singing music for activist events through the Student Nonviolent Coordinating Committee. They were arrested, what about like
29 times.
29 times they were arrested. And, Matt continued to work for freedom and to work on it through music even after the time of the Civil Rights Movement. He would gather people together weekly at a church in Manhattan. And what they would do was to work on writing freedom songs, to work on writing songs that would be connected to various movements. It was fantastic. That'd be a good thing to keep on doing.
Well, there are things that we say that we don't know we say. Come to the tree of life. Well, there are things that we say that we don't know we say. Come to the tree of life. Oh, come to the tree of life. Come to the tree
Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you so much. Now, I heard that we can go back to Bob Gord. He can speak now through the phone.
Hi, Cam. And hi, Reggie. I've got to meet you someday. You're one of my best friends already from my point of view. But we've got to make, anyway, I'm so glad to see you. And I wanted to respond to a couple of things. One, going back to Craig's question about materials, curricular materials. Yes, I know that there are great materials from preschool on up. One that I want to mention that Craig, you do know about, but many people may not know about, is a great book by Brendan Kiley, who just happens to be Maureen Shannon Chappell's nephew, called Another Talk. It's a wonderful book for sort of, there. Janet's got it, pitched to more or less middle school young people on the subject of race. And we, as CRJ and others of us, are going to try to get Santa Monica Unified to start using that book. And I've written up a piece on it that I'm going to be sharing with people. So that's exciting. Right around here, we're trying to promote just an excellent book for young people. And the other thing I wanted to comment on is critical race theory. As Kim mentions, the actual writings of critical race theorists are very sophisticated pieces of analysis that people in law schools study and that sort of thing. But some people, not Kim, I'm not aiming this at you, Kim, but some people for school districts, they sort of run the other way. They say, oh no, we're not doing critical race theory. You know, that's law school stuff, as if it would be a bad thing to be doing it. And it is, and it wouldn't be. Critical race theory is great, and it has influenced, you know, people lower down on the educational ladder, but it is not to be apologized for. It tells us things like the fact that race is a social construct and not a biological reality. It tells us a lot of the important things that most of us actually know about race. So, you know, don't let the Republicans make it a dirty word. But anyway, those were my comments, and so wonderful to have both of you two together. I love your harmonies, and thanks for being with us.
Yeah, thank you very much.
I think Craig Ali is going to say a couple words.
Yes, thank you. Go ahead, Craig.
Thank you, Janet. Thank you, Louise, and to all. Much of what I'm saying is in reflection on the current book we're reading in CRJ. Even though it's last minute, you know, much of what I'm saying is motivated by that. Tomorrow is St. Valentine's Day, and when we look at the African perspective of St. Valentine, it embraces, or it points to a sense of love between male and female, two entities that are indeed very significant to life itself. So as we reflect on that idea of love, and this being Black History Month, there is this view and vision of Black love. And I'm wondering specifically, well, I'm not wondering, I'm torn, because when I look at that and I look at the Dr. King model, he talks about love, but it's different than that of St. Valentine's Day. It's more of an agape, a spiritual kind of love. And when we look specifically as what has happened to us as a people, and what Sered more or less looks at in terms of the punishment and the violence stems from a hate. So when we more or less focus back on what Dr. King said in terms of agape, if we were to more or less embrace that form of love for ourselves, and understanding who we are and what we are, and loving ourselves, then not only can we survive, but we can thrive. Because within that, it internalizes all that we've done up to this point in light of, the hostility towards us. We're still here, and we're still in this thing to love each other. So we want to more or less promote that idea of self understanding of self and loving of self, to where we can be a more vibrant and thriving community. I thank you, for the opportunity to impart that vision.
Thank you. And I think we're going to be graced now with another song by movement by Reggie and Dr. Kim.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and this will be getting us in a space for our joys and concerns. So take a breath, everyone. And we're just going to do the chorus of this spiritual. That's always been a very important one, because it not only is thinking about and bringing to concern those who are oppressed and those who are in need of healing, but also brings to concern and to care those who are doing injustice, because they too need to be remembered if we can help them to have change of heart. There is a balm in Gilead to make the wounded whole. There's a balm in Gilead to heal the sin-sick soul. There is a balm in Gilead to make the wounded whole. There is a balm in Gilead to heal the sin-sick soul. There is a balm in Gilead to make the wounded whole. There is a balm in Gilead to heal the sin-sick soul. Now we invite you to write into the chat your joys and concerns, and birthdays, anniversaries, and other life cycle events. Please put those into the chat and we'll continue to play this beautiful song. And after we get these all into the chat, Louise, if you wouldn't mind reading them, that would be very good. Thank you. Louise.
Thank you. So beautiful. Okay, first I want to lift up Linda's comment, a concern and a joy that this church has, as a church, we have gone beyond the gender binary of St. Valentine's. Thank goodness. So amen to that. Thanks, Linda. And the concept and the idea that Craig was talking about, black love, has originated from conversations among members of the church in Ocean Park. Thank you. So I would now like to sing one of my favorite songs called Sing Hallelujah. I learned it from the singing of Joe and Eddie, who were a wonderful duo. If you ever get a chance to hear their music, they're not alive, or I think one passed on, but their music is so fabulous. Sing hallelujah. I know I got a long journey now. Sing hallelujah. I better get started early. Sing hallelujah. Sing out for the Lord to help you. The Lord is mighty strong. Don't you worry about your heavy load. The Lord's gonna help you along. The Lord's gonna help you along. Last night I heard my Lord calling. Sing hallelujah. He said, you better quit your stalling. Sing hallelujah. Sing out for the Lord to help you. The Lord is mighty strong. Don't you worry about your heavy load. The Lord's gonna help you along. The Lord's gonna help you along. I don't know, but I've been told. Sing hallelujah. You sing and clap, you can save your soul. Sing hallelujah. Sing out for the Lord.
Thank you, Louise.
Thank you.
So lucky to have Louise, our director of music. So lucky. And we're so lucky to have Dr. Kim Harris and Reggie Harris with us this morning and together and providing such great harmony. Lovely service, and it feels full of love. So take that love with you and bring it into the world and realize that there is always more love to give and to receive. And let's take down the barriers for both giving and receiving that love and spread it across the world. And so we unmute ourselves. And one way we do spread love is we hug the whole world. We reach out and we take hands with people who are here and people who are not here.
We
And we
collide.
together carry on. We try to carry on together. 1, 2, 3.
Carry on. Carry on. Carry on.
Thank you all. Beautiful service. Thank you, Reggie.
Thank you.
so
Thank
much.
you.
Nice to be with you all.
Hi,
Thank you.
Edward.